Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with Dave's Faves. And today we're talking about Shostakovich's Eighth Symphony. Ooh, baby. And my performance of choice is Mravinsky and Leningrad. This is now on Decca. It was on Philips. It was also on Melodia. You can find it a million different ways. The performance date, which is how you do these things, was March 1982. Now, this is my choice for a bunch of reasons. First of all, this is absolutely Shostakovich's, well, one of Shostakovich's most gut-wrenching symphonies, because so many are gut-wrenching. It's unbelievably moving and dark and driven, and the finale is one of the most honest things he ever wrote, because it was a World War II piece, and he felt that the circumstances of the war gave him the freedom to be realistic. And so although it attempts a happy ending, it doesn't get there. It's an incredible finale, actually. It's a sort of a rondo, but it's broken back. The return of the music from the first movement and a crushing, dissonant climax simply snaps the spine of the movement. It's trying to be perky and cheerful, and in the end, it limps to the ending. And it's very interesting. Shostakovich is famous for his big bombastic endings, such as like the 5th or the 7th or the 12th symphonies, where they're like bomb, 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 crash, bang, with all that hysteria. But what's really most characteristic of Shostakovich is his way of doing a quiet ending, because his quiet endings tend to gaze out into infinity. In the most moving, but at the same time disturbing way. And this is one of those. The music is trying to be happy, then it just stops, it gives up, and the violins hold a long-held note, and underneath that you just hear bum, 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 bum. It just keeps doing that. It could do it forever, but eventually it fades out. And there are many, many works that do something similar. We first hear that kind of ending from him at the end of the Fourth Symphony. And despite the fact that the Fourth Symphony got trashed and it wasn't premiered until, several decades after it was written and whatnot, he never forgot that aspect of his art. He enriched it as time went on, because this is the first symphony after the fourth to do that kind of space thing. But there were other works around the same time that did it. The second piano trio does almost exactly the same thing. One of those long-held notes with creepy, soft things happening underneath. The second cello concerto does that. That's a much later work, of course. The 15th Symphony, later still, does that with those space codas, you might want to call them. One of the most beautiful, of course, is the end of the Babi Yar Symphony, which also does that gazing out into eternity. As the music softly fades away into nothingness. It's so moving, and it's incredibly moving here. Now, why did I choose this performance? Well, Mravinsky was, of course, an amazing conductor. He trained the Leningrad Philharmonic to within an inch of its life. You will play or you will go to Gulag. That's what the deal was with this orchestra. He was an autocrat. But I'm not all that thrilled with a lot of what he did. First of all, a lot of it sounds like hell, so that's a problem. And second of all, because he didn't make records for the most part, there are really only a few great Mravinsky performances that are perfect in all of their details, including the engineering. This is one of them. For a while, this one was issued tuned a little bit sharp. So instead of being in C minor, it was like sort of in C sharp minor. I don't care. It's one of those things that classical music people love to scream about, to make a big deal out of things that really don't matter. But it's this and the Tchaikovsky last three symphonies and a couple other things that are sort of acceptable sonically. But then once you get past the sonic stuff, there's Mravinsky. He was so severe in his approach. He trained that string section to be absolutely amazing. And and everybody else was kind of along for the ride, although they were often quite good. They really were. But it just seems to me that once you hear the approach, the type of sound you are going to get from him, it's much the same from one performance to a next. I don't think he had a lot of versatility in terms of repertoire. I mean, he did a lot of repertoire, but somehow it all has that same sort of fanatically precise, grim feel to it, in a way that you don't get with, some conductors were just as autocratic and they had very characteristic sounds. Toscanini did, Stokowski did, and they're in their various ways. But, I'm just talking personally now. I would rather have less of Mravinsky and the best, because then I can just sit back in astonishment and admire the whole thing. And I don't have to listen to a completely different work with nothing like this kind of intensity and hair-raising expressive punch, like a Glazunov symphony, and think, oh, gee, that sounds like Shostakovich Eighth. It all sounds like Shostakovich Eighth. I mean, I know I'm exaggerating, and I know people will disagree with me, but that's kind of how I feel about the guy. He was a tremendous conductor. He trained a magnificent orchestra throughout very difficult times, obviously. He dealt with the authorities somehow. I mean, he wimped out doing Shostakovich's Babi Yar symphony. But through all that, at his best, he was one of the greats, and the orchestra was amazing. And when they sound good, they are phenomenal. And this is one of those performances where they do. So it's the March 1982 Shostakovich Eighth with Yevgeny Mravinsky. That is one of my faves, without a doubt. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.